Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. Now, I reported, was it yesterday, day before yesterday, about the gagging order that Starmer had put on senior military personnel. This is because they don't like him and they're all kind of briefing against him, and he thinks that by putting a gagging order on will stop them telling everyone exactly what they think of him. It won't, of course. You have to be an absolute child to think that. They'll just go, well, off the record, and then say exactly the same thing anyway to some lobbyist or some journo who happens to be at some meeting. This is how these things work. But it seems that it's the soon-to-be outgoing Chief of the Defence Staff, the CDS, who is causing this. He is very, very dismissive of Starmer and his policies. His name is Admiral Tony Radakin. Been in post for several years. He's coming to the end of his term. He ends in, the autumn. And it's the Army's turn next, I think. So it'll be some general will take over. Now, what's happening is that Radakin has been briefing against Starmer personally and the policies. And he was very, very critical about the SDR, the Strategic Defence Review. He's saying, how can you invest in hundreds of soldiers and only 50 tanks? He says, how can you have lots of new warships and submarines but not hire any sailors? He says none of this makes sense. He says, and as for the progression to the 3%, he says the time frame is far too long. We need that 3% now. Not in 10 years' time. He says in 10 years' time it may be far too late. And so forth. And so he's been briefing. Then this gagging order comes. And so all the admirals and generals and air chief marshals and whoever, all these senior ranks, well, they're continuing to brief. They're just saying, off the record, chap, we're not allowed to talk about this, blah, blah, blah. But they're all saying the same thing. Now, apparently relations between the MOD and Downing Street are at an all-time low. And we all know what happens when the military don't like the government. There's always problems. Fortunately, we're a sort of country that doesn't have a military coup, and have a generalissimo take over. But Jesus, sometimes you think maybe we could. It wouldn't be a terrible, terrible thing if it was short-lived. Now, once Radakin leaves in the autumn, this is the important thing. We need a new Chief of Defence Staff. As I say, it's a general, but the pick is Starmer's. The only problem is he's got a very limited pool from which he can pick. It's got to be one of basically 3 or 4 generals. If he does decide to override the thing and go, well, I'm not going to pick a bloody general, I'll pick an admiral or an air chief marshal or an air marshal or something like that. Again, he's only got a pick of maybe 2 or 3 of each. Now, the whole point is, out of maybe a field of a dozen people he could possibly pick from, they all hate him. So it doesn't matter who he picks. Every choice is someone who dislikes intensely Starmer, his party and his policies. Good luck. Thanks a lot. Bye.